By now we can all accept that the band, the Beatles, was created by Tavistock working with the military intelligence to bring cultural change to the West, a form of witchcraft or spelling, hypnosis, and mind control. Phrases, music, poems, images, statues, plays, movies, news, etc. are all used by the overlords for hypnosis and mind control of the masses, and it's been that way for a long time. I talk about the roots of all of this in Greek theater, and then in plays in the Elizabethan era Britain, I cover especially a lot on this channel. The Beatles song, Helter Skelter, from the 1968 White Album, was supposedly written by Paul McCartney. Now we know that that is Billy Shears, Paul's replacement, and John Lennon, the Druid. Along with the other tracks from the White Album, Helter Skelter was reportedly interpreted by cult leader Charles Manson as a message predicting interracial war in the United States. And I'll say that I think that was probably planting the interracial war in the United States. Sushi and the Banshees, Motley Crue, Aerosmith, U2, Oasis, and Pat Benatar are among the artists who have covered the track Helter Skelter. It's one of the songs most frequently performed by Paul McCartney or Billy Shears in concert. There have been a lot of books and articles written indicating that the Manson murders may have something to do with CIA mind control experiments. So here you have witchcraft connection between Tavistock, the CIA, the Beatles, and Charles Manson, and Hollywood, since that's where the Manson murders took place, and Sharon Tate, pregnant wife of Roman Polanski, was one of the people murdered. McCartney, or Billy Shears, said that he was, quote, using the symbol of a helter-skelter as a ride from the top to the bottom, the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, and this was the fall, the demise. That's his quote. But where did the phrase helter-skelter originate? The phrase helter-skelter has origins stemming from the Germanic word kelter or kilter, meaning working order or alignment, as in a military formation. Helter-skelter was adapted from the Anglo-French and Latin terms, based with the resulting meaning being out of formation, disordered, or confused. So, the phrase helter-skelter means chaos and disorder. The first use of the phrase was by Thomas Nash, and he was an Elizabethan playwright and poet. Nash was the son of William Nash and Janeth Wichingham. Nash was educated at Cambridge. Remember that plays are typically about the polytheist history and religion of the elites, which is taught at Cambridge, and especially the Elizabethan era in the mid-1500s, which is during the time of the Spear Shaker Society. Later in the 1900s, the phrase helter-skelter became associated with theme park rides in Britain, and it was specific to those with a tall spiral slide winding around a tower. But the term predates that fairground ride. It has been used to mean disorderly haste or confusion since the 16th century. Thomas Nash used that phrase in that way in his play titled Four Letters Confuted in 1592. A quote from that play is, Helter Skelter, fear no colors, course him, trounce him. So, Helter Skelter, fear no colors, course him, trounce him. Shakespeare used that same phrase a few years later in Henry IV, Part 2 in 1600. A quote from that play is, Helter Skelter, have I rode to thee, and tidings do I bring. So the traditional British helter-skelter ride resembled a lighthouse, but many other variations of the helter-skelter ride have different features and have adopted different theme names, including variations on the spiral slide, such as the one in Manchester, White City's Dragon Slide. So I assume that may be where the White Album name came from. But there's a more modern variation of the Helter-Skelter slide. The Orbit is a sculpture that was completed for the London Olympics in 2012, and it's located in Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. It is Britain's largest piece of public art. The designer of this sculpture said that one of the influences on his design was the Tower of Babel. He said the sense of, quote, building the impossible that, quote, had something mythical about it. The space inside the structure and between the twisting steel are cathedral-like. The intention is that visitors will engage with the piece as they wind the spiral walkway. Then in 2016, a permanent slide was added to the sculpture. This is an article that says the sculptor's Orbit Tower is the mother of all Helter-Skelters. Helter-Skelter has been in common use in England for the past 400 years and has been known in the United States since the 1820s. The expression or phrase helter-skelter had something of a renaissance in the late 1600s when Charles Manson, the leader of the notorious family cult, began using it as a name for the apocalyptic war between whites and blacks, which he believed would soon break out. Or I'll just go ahead and say that the CIA planted using mind control and Charles Manson in the Beatles and the phrase. It says Manson interpreted many of the lyrics in Beatles songs to suit his maniacal predictions, in particular the reference to going up and down the Helter-Skelter slide in the Helter-Skelter he believed was a prediction of the family's appearance from the bottomless pit. So, there's also a Broadway vaudeville musical that was promoted in 1899, named Helter-Skelter, performed at the Weber and Fields Broadway Music Hall in Manhattan. The genre of that play was vaudeville, analogous to the music hall from Victorian Britain. A German Jew named Joe Weber popularized vaudeville in the U.S., and so I assume he was familiar with the term Helter-Skelter, since we said the term Helter-Skelter had Germanic origins meaning chaos and disorder. So now you have a witchcraft connection between Tavistock, the CIA, the Beatles, Charles Manson, Hollywood, this Tower of Babel structure in Queen Elizabeth's Olympic Park, and a Broadway musical titled Helter-Skelter, which originated in Britain Victorian theater all the way back to the Elizabethan theater during the time of the Spear Shaker Society, and that phrase means chaos and disorder. So frequently this spelling finds its roots in Elizabethan theater and plays, especially spells that affect our culture here in the West. So my point is that I'm guessing there is truth to Charles Manson being CIA mind controlled, because the phrase Helter-Skelter was used by the Beatles, who we now know were practicing witchcraft. And we can see that the phrase has history back to Broadway, and before that London theater, which we've already said and proven many times is a root of witchcraft through the telling and spelling of the polytheist religion and history of the elites. And to make it even more frustrating, you have these theme park rides named Helter-Skelter, and even slides at larger tourist attractions near the Olympic Park in London, which is also named after the Tower of Babel, related to the witchy phrase Helter-Skelter. Thanks for listening.